They had people spit in their face, many negative reactions to what they were doing. And the churches that invited them to come speak to them also faced harassment in the general community. So we're talking about real bravery and real dedication.
I'm Brian Henderson, Executive Director of the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists, or AWAB. Our mission is to create and support a community of churches, organizations, and individuals committed to the inclusion of LGBTQ plus persons in the full life and mission of the Baptist landscape. In this first season of the AWAB podcast, Voice of the Turtle, we're going to dig into the past while we face the present. The year 2026 brings some uncertainty for our LGBTQ plus siblings and allies, but we've been here before. Across 8 episodes, we're going to burrow our way through some of our history and talk to the people who made it and are still making it. In this episode, you'll hear from Dr. Delane Tew, PhD. Delane and I met nearly 7 years ago at the annual General Assembly of the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. Delane, then professor of history, expressed an interest in learning more about AWAB, and before we said goodbye to each other, we'd begun to consider how AWAB's story could be told. And now today, we are fortunate to have that story in our hands, and we'll get to learn more about it shortly. Recently, I was reminded of a quote by the late church historian and theologian Jaroslav Pelikan. Tradition is the living faith of the dead. Traditionalism is the dead faith of the living. Well, as I've been around AWAB and have been learning of the lives of those who have contributed to its history, I've witnessed often a vibrant, courageous, persistent, and living faith that has been shared by so many. Many who are now part of that eternal cloud of witnesses for all eternity, and many who are still actively involved in ministry and life today. Welcoming and Affirming ministry is not for the faint of heart, for it takes so much brave effort and commitment. It's a tradition that gives us a glimpse of living faith, and this living faith can inspire us to keep on keeping on today. And it invites us all always to honor the inherent dignity of every human. Someone said, sometimes there's more spirit in a pint than there is in a pew. Would you believe the story of AWAB, or the Welcoming and Affirming movement in Baptist life, traces its roots to a bar in Lincoln, Nebraska? This story, and many more, are told in AWAB's history written by Delane Tew, Finding a Home Among Baptists. You can order your own copy of this history at awab.org/book. That is awab.org/book. This book and its rich retelling of how many Baptists are welcoming and affirming provides the basis for this current Voice of the Turtle podcast series, digging into the past while facing the present. Again, you can order your copy of Finding a Home Among Baptists at awab.org/book. We welcome now Dr. Delane Tew. Delane Tew was born into a Baptist pastor's home. Her childhood revolved around church activities. After graduating from Samford University with a BA in history, she attended the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Following graduation and a brief stint on a church staff in Atlanta, Delane was appointed a missionary to Japan, where she served for 12 years. Upon her return to the United States, she was employed by Women's Missionary Union. During this time, she completed her PhD in history at Auburn University and went on to teach at 3 Baptist colleges and universities. Delane has published numerous scholarly articles on Baptist history and contributed several chapters on the lives of Baptist heroes. Delane, thank you for taking time to be with us today. I'm so grateful we met when we did years ago and had a conversation about telling AWAB's story. From experience, often many people don't put Baptist and LGBTQ plus inclusion together. So, Delane, what was it that sparked your interest in AWAB's work and ministry, and how was it that you began to consider writing its history?
Thank you for inviting me here. I really appreciate this time to talk. It all began really when I moved back to Birmingham and joined Baptist Church of the Covenant.
Okay.
Wonderful AWAB church in
Mm-hmm.
downtown Birmingham.
That's right.
It was the first time I had seen out LGBTQ individuals accepted fully into the life of the church. And it was a wonderful experience. And it really helped me come to know my own sexuality and come out first to myself and then to my church and then to my wider family. And as part of that, I met one of the lesbian couples there, and one of them took me to an LGBTQ retreat over in Mississippi that the Presbyterians sponsored.
Huh.
It was wonderful,
Wow.
and I thought, why don't Baptists have something like this? So that summer, I went to the annual meeting of the Alliance of Baptists.
Okay.
And it was there that I met Robin Lund, who was at the
Hmm.
time the executive director of AWAB. And that was my first introduction to
Hmm.
the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists. So there was that piece. And then as a faculty member there at Samford University, I started wondering about the experience of LGBTQ people, especially in the South
Sure.
and the Baptist people in the South. And so a sociology professor and I got together to create a survey that we sent out
Hmm.
about Baptists in the South, about their understanding of the LGBTQ community. And as a part of this article, I was going to write the part about the history of the Baptists and
Hmm.
the LGBTQ community. That's when I contacted you
Ah,
and
okay.
said,
Yes.
I need to know more about the AWAB history.
Wow.
And from
Oh,
that conversation came our look into the 50-year history of the
that's right.
association.
Wow. We were sitting in a hotel lobby, as I recall, actually.
Yes, we were.
And I remember sitting there, one, just moved by your own story and the connection that you have, connections really that you have with BCOC and then with the larger Baptist family and landscape. And then I walked away realizing it wasn't just a conversation. It wasn't just let's get together and figure out what we can do. We were connecting around something really sacred and something
It
that
was.
I knew was going to contribute in a meaningful way to the ongoing welcoming and affirming movement in Baptist life. So my
Yes, I felt that too. It
yeah,
was
it was
exciting.
it
Yes.
really it really was. Wow. Well, Delane, in this Voice of the Turtle inaugural season, we are in many ways, thanks to you, digging back into our past to discover how much more effectively and efficiently we can move through the present and then into the future. Digging into AWAB's past as you have, as there one or two particular stories, events, or individuals that stand out for you among others? And maybe why?
It's hard to limit them to one or two.
Sure, I know.
But uh, it's interesting as I began to study the history of the ABC, American Baptist Churches USA, as I began to study that organization. Back in the 70s, it had a movement toward a little bit more moderate kind of beliefs. Actually, the Southern Baptist Convention had that movement too. And
Right.
an individual known as Dan Carney, he was in the organization there of the ABC USA, and he first sort of developed this idea of working with other non-traditional Baptist families. And really, he sort of started it all back in the 70s. But then, sort of, I guess the founding fathers and
Mm,
mothers of the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists would be Roger Harrison,
right.
and Rick Mixon. When all of this started, Rick Mixon was just a seminary student, so very young.
Yeah.
But Roger Harrison had been a missionary and had come back and discovered his own sexuality and started to help find a place for LGBTQ people in the church. And they got together. It was just three men that got together in 1970. Well, they started meeting in 1972, but 1973, they met in a gay bar and started talking about we need an organization to reach out to American Baptist churches specifically.
And where was that gay bar?
Yeah, right.
Was it Lincoln, Nebraska?
Lincoln, Nebraska, of
My
all
goodness.
places. I
Right,
mean,
right.
the most, most liberal place on earth, right?
Yeah.
Um, and from that came this idea that these people, and then Barbara McNair joined them in the leadership of, at that time, it was ABC Concerned,
Right.
was the name of the organization.
That's
And
right.
they
American
started
Baptist Concern.
American Baptist Concern, thank you. They started just going to churches that would invite them and just starting a dialogue
Mm.
about where does the LGBTQ plus individual belong in the church. It was just a dialogue. And these people, they met many, they had people spit in their face,
Mm.
many negative reactions to what they were doing. And the churches that invited them to come speak to them also faced harassment
Mm.
in the general community.
Mm.
So we're talking about real bravery and real dedication
Mm.
to stick to this and start working with it. Louise Rose became the first
Right.
president of ABC Concerned. And so all of them working together to develop this movement and to start the Voice of the Turtle, the
That's right.
newsletter.
Yeah.
The first editor and helped create the Voice of the Turtle was Daryl Lance.
That's right.
And that was the mechanism through which this new organization publicized itself. It was individuals would sign up to the organization, and so they had to go through things like being anonymous, the mailing list. They had to keep it anonymous because remember, back in the 70s and 80s, people lost their jobs. If they were outed, they could lose their families, just everything if they were outed. So all of it had to be anonymous. But I also think about some allies who were along the way helping, like Dick and Shirley Jones,
Mm.
who were in the leadership of of the American Baptist Churches USA, who stood up for the LGBTQ plus community, and helped support them and encourage them. So not just the LGBT community itself, but then also the allies that really helped along the way.
Right.
And then as we move toward the 1990s, we have Brenda Moulton coming in as the first head of the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists.
We'll be right back with more of our conversation with Delane. AWAB proudly welcomes American Baptist Home Mission Societies as a sponsor of this inaugural season of Voice of the Turtle podcast. For nearly 200 years, ABHMS has promoted the Christian faith to impact lives positively. Inspired by the gospel that heals and transforms, ABHMS cultivates and empowers faith leaders across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. ABHMS partners with American Baptists and others to build networks, foster innovation in ministry, and deliver high-quality resources to educate and equip those who are passionate about healing and transforming the communities they serve. To learn more, visit the ABHMS website at abhms.org. Thank you, ABHMS, for your support. AWAB also proudly welcomes Knollwood Baptist Church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, as a sponsor for this inaugural season. A generous grant from Knollwood's Missions Affiliations and Allocations Committee brings Voice of the Turtle to you today. Now, back to our conversation with Delane Tew. Wow, isn't it remarkable how the movement is, I mean, it's what we know it's how it is perhaps, but it's always a good reminder to be reminded of the people that make the movement
Yes.
what the movement is. I mean, the Ricks and the Louises and the Daryls and the Barbaras and the Rogers and the Dicks and the Shirleys. I mean, it takes so many people to do collectively
Yes.
what one individual or just a few can't do on their own. To write AWAB's history and to tell its story, you visited and interviewed many of these individuals, and you spent time, I know, at the American Baptist Historical Society in Atlanta, Georgia, calling through archives. Can you give us a behind the scenes sense of what it was like to interact with the stories and people and history you researched? What feelings were sparked as details came into focus? Did anything surprise you? Were there any aha moments you had along the way?
It was it was amazing to me how dynamic these individuals are.
Mm,
Just dynamic, charismatic, but also genuine people
mm,
that have worked to build the history of the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists. It's a moving experience to talk to these people. You know, people like Rick Mixon, who've been
mm.
in it from the very beginning, have suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Sure.
Um, he he pushed and pushed and pushed to try to get ordination.
Right.
He was an out gay minister, and he really worked to try to get the ABC USA to ordain him, and he was constantly turned away and turned away at the regional level, not his local church,
Right.
but at the regional level. And he just kept at it, you
Mm,
know, and he's still there, and his wisdom is a part of the association. It's just a wonderful thing. Another thing that surprised me was actually how early there was a Southern church involved in the LGBTQ
mm.
community, and that being Pullen Baptist Church
Right.
in Raleigh, North Carolina. Back in 1992, they faced the issue of whether or not to have, of course, it couldn't be a marriage that at that time, but to have a service of union
Right.
for a gay couple, it was.
Mm,
And so, as a Southerner myself, it
sure.
really surprised me at how early, just all over the nation,
Hmm.
but for me in particular in the South, the bravery of these churches that came through.
Wow. And Delane, I know as I read the book that you've written, uh, I was intrigued how you were able to tell the Baptist story around other realities within the greater national scene and story of what was going on with LGBTQ rights and progress. But now that we have Finding a Home Among Baptists in our hands, or it can be in your hands by visiting awab.org/book. What are lessons from AWAB's story for you, Delane, that might be helpful for us as Baptists to keep in mind as we engage in ministry today?
To me, seeing, as I've mentioned before a couple of times, the bravery of our
Mhm.
leadership in the past and our membership in the past,
Mm,
um, this is the time when we need to be brave, I think. Something that really rang true for me was all of the early leaders, and even up to today, their basic scaffolding for all of their
mm,
life was their belief in the traditional Baptist beliefs.
mm,
The Baptist belief of the autonomy of the local church, the Baptist belief in the priesthood of the believer. They constantly said, "We are Baptist. You cannot take that away from us. We are here."
mm,
And they just refused to let go. And in my mind, they were calling the churches in which they were speaking and living, they were calling them to a higher standard,
mm,
back to that really true belief in what it means to be Baptist.
mm,
And there are or other churches that um, are quote gay churches,
mm,
and but these leaders did not want to leave the Baptist church.
mm,
They grew up Baptist, they lived Baptist, they worked Baptist, and they wanted to stay Baptist.
mm.
So I think it's a tale for us to stay to say who we are. We're here, we're not leaving, and you can't chase us away.
That's right. Wow, powerful, powerful. I know someone recently said to me how they were talking about what churches can do to be welcoming and affirming. And one of the things that they suggested is that churches can listen to queer folk in their congregations, right? And it strikes me as more than significant that out of this queer movement, this welcoming and affirming movement in Baptist life, how the queer community, one of its gifts to the church, to Baptist churches, is how to be Baptist, right? And to think
Right.
about our freedoms and to think about historically what it is to be who we say we are as a Baptist people. Delane, thank you. It's been really good to connect and to talk today as we have. It's been good to hear your stories and experiences as you have crafted the story of the welcoming and affirming movement across the Baptist landscape. And it's significant for me to know that we are having this inaugural episode of Voice of the Turtle with you. For those who are listening to this podcast for the first time, Voice of the Turtle was an early newsletter chronicling the stories and realities of LGBTQ plus folk in Baptist life, beginning, as Delane said, in the mid 70s. And Delane, I know you reviewed many, if not all, of the Voice of the Turtle newsletters for your research. Voice of the Turtle's motto was, as you know, behold the turtle. It makes progress only when it sticks out its neck. How would you encourage folk today, and maybe even in this present time, to stick out their neck?
One lesson that I learned from this research was um, we do have to consider what was going on in the general American history at the time and look at how that applies to us today. So I think about back in 1977, the fight in Dade County, Florida, where Miami is, for as the city was trying to adopt a non-discrimination clause for the
Hmm.
LGBTQ community. And it is shocking how many of those same themes that were used against lesbians and gays at that time, that same language is being used against trans people in the trans
Hmm.
community today.
Hmm.
That quote, Save Our Children campaign. It's
Hmm.
shockingly similar to what we're experiencing today.
Hmm.
And I know uh, something that gives me pride is the way my church, particularly Baptist Church of the Covenant,
Right.
has stood up and said, with the help of AWAB and through its current newsletter, this is wrong.
Hmm.
And we're not accepting it. We're speaking up because, here, of course, here in Alabama, unfortunately, we're one of the states that have made gender affirming treatment illegal.
Right.
And in fact, my church witnessed one family have to move to a different state
Hmm.
because their trans daughter could not receive the care that she needed here in Alabama. But my pastor,
Hmm.
Erica Cooper, if I can say a name,
That's right.
Erica Cooper spoke out with other ministers in our state to say this is wrong.
That's right.
So to be, again, you mentioned this before, to be present, to
Hmm.
say we are here and this is our voice and we believe God is on our side is so important today to take those lessons from the past and to put them to use today
Hmm.
and to be present, to speak out.
Wow, that's right, Delane. Thank you. As I'm listening to you and recalling some of the names that you've mentioned and other names that are coming to mind for me from over the decades, it's the courage, right, that folk
Right.
had that helped move people forward with a sense of hope and meaning, with a sense of belonging, with a sense of togetherness, with a sense of affirmation, and people speak today, I think, in terms of a currency of courage, and it is the courage of our work and efforts today that I think will pave the way
Yes.
for tomorrow and the energy and ministry of welcome and affirmation that will be needed. So
Yes. Yes.
you have brought to life the courage of so many over the decades, and for that we are really really grateful.
I would like to share one quote from the book because
Yeah, that would be great.
I think it is so applicable for us today. This is a quote in at the national meeting in the ABC USA convention meeting in West Virginia in 1991, an anti-gay resolution was brought to the floor. It didn't actually pass at that meeting, but unfortunately, through some various backplay, it ultimately got adopted by the ABC USA. But this is what Brenda Moulton had to say about that convention in West Virginia, when there was so much anti-LGBTQ spirit around. Her quote was, "Most of all, the incredible joy of knowing, really knowing that no matter what happened during those few days in Charleston, nothing, no one, no statement, no bureaucratic body, no amount of hatred or injustice or bigotry or misunderstanding can separate me or any of us from the love of God through Jesus Christ. I know that there is and will always be a place for all of us at Christ's table, and for that I rejoice."
Wow, what profound words,
Yes.
and what courage it took for her to share them, and what courage that continues to inspire, I think, for all of us today. So, and Delane, your courage inspired me. And again, I just want to express how grateful I am for you and
Thank you.
how our paths have crossed and how they'll continue to intersect.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
in the seasons to come. You have made our world a better place, and the light that you share brightens our world more brightly every day. So thank you, Delane, for sticking out your neck as you have for so many through this work and through the work that you continue to do.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Please plan to join us for our next Voice of the Turtle episode, when we visit with Reverend Dr. Randall R. Mixon, otherwise known by all as Rick. We'll learn more about how AWAB's work began in a bar, and we'll learn from one who was in the room where it happened, how to keep engaged in welcoming and affirming ministry today. That's all the dirt for this episode of Digging into the Past While Facing the Present, Season 1 of the podcast from the Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists, AWAB. The podcast is produced by our friends at Good Faith Media. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org. Our music comes from Pond 5. This AWAB podcast is made possible by a generous grant from American Baptist Home Mission Societies and from Knollwood Baptist Church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. You can learn more about us, AWAB, at awab.org. You can tap more of our free resources, including a list of fully welcoming and affirming Baptist-aligned churches in the United States and elsewhere. That's awab.org. Reach out. You can support us, and we can support you. Check out the show notes for more information. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give us a like and rating, and tell your friends about it. If you find yourself needing immediate support and someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988. I'm Brian Henderson. Stay encouraged. Remember, you are not alone.